It's 5 minutes past 8 here on 101.5. It's SportsFeva time, and a special treat for all the long-time SportsFeva fans. The original host, Andre Grimaud, is back for one night only. Welcome back, Big Andre.
Yes, good morning, Matty. Good morning to the listeners. Good to fill in, fill back in for Swampy Marsh, who's sunning himself and working on his beard up on the or down on the Gold Coast somewhere.
He's got a good life, does Swampy Marsh, down there in Coolangatta. When it's warm in Caboolture, it's Coolangatta. There you go. Now, we kicked off the show with Cheryl Crow. You know I love a segue. Cheryl Crow, of course, the ex-girlfriend of Lance Armstrong. He's found himself in a bit of trouble the last couple of weeks, Andre.
Yeah, not your best segue, Matty, but not a bad one. Not a bad one. Looks, I don't know that people are necessarily staggered or shocked by this. More a sense of disappointment and we've been hard done by here, haven't we? So many people wanted to believe that Armstrong was the legend that he created around himself, but the events and the information that's come out in the past week have shown him up for being exactly the opposite. And what staggers me in all of this is how far behind in terms of technology and testing the world drug agencies are. That for so long that Lance Armstrong could escape. And there's talk that he'd been paying the testers off and the world cycling bodies and that sort of stuff as well, which obviously aided his cause. But that it could go almost undetected for so long makes you think it won't be the last time that we get duped as sports fans.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I just know so many shattered people that held him in such high regard. I just feel, like you said, they feel cheated themselves. So that they wanted to believe in him and what he represented, and it's I know a lot of people are feeling very hollow at the moment. And like you said, the drug testers could be so far behind the ball, and like that, a lot of money. It kind of shows if you've got money, you can get away with a fair bit of stuff.
I think the history of cycling, in particular the Tour de France, in the past 10 or 20 years has shown that drugs are prevalent in the sport, but many, as I said, had held out hope that Lance was clean, and the seven victories were fair dinkum, but no, they weren't. And I think there's still more to come out of this. We see overnight that Nike's now dropped him as from their endorsements, and he's now stepped down from his Livestrong Foundation as well. So look, I'd go as far to say it's probably the biggest scandal in world sport in history, almost.
I'd say close. Yeah, it'd certainly be top 5 of all time, no doubt about it.
Just below the Stuart Law not playing enough games for Australia.
That's number one. Yeah. Stewie Law only playing one test for Australia. Yeah. And number 2 would be Martin Love getting dropped after he scored 100 for Australia. They're your top 2. Armstrong probably slips in around 3.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that coming from you. But yeah, look, and whether or not this cleans up the sport of cycling, I think sports fans would love it too. But I doubt it highly. I think that the money that is up for grabs is still too high for people not to be looking for that advantage.
Money breeds corruption. Plenty more to come in the show, though. On a brighter note, what have we got coming up today?
Yeah, looking forward to it. I've resumed or taken the chair back, and I'm going to bring some world games, some football back into it. Look, there's some big things happening both locally and nationally on the football stage. We'll talk to 2 men at the centre point of a lot of what's happening in Australian football at the moment. We'll talk little athletics with the Caboolture Centre. There's obviously a big calendar of events coming up over the summer for little athletics, and also, of course, we'll talk racing. Spring Carnival's started. It's been a great start to the Spring Racing Carnival, and there's plenty more happening this weekend.
An action-packed show as always, and good to have you back in the chair. We'll play your favourite song. I know you like to dance along with this one, and then we'll be in to talk some more world game to get that soccer quota up now that you're back in the studio. It's 13 minutes past 8 here on 101.5. This is SportsFeva with Matthew and Andre. And Andre, time to lift this quota of soccer, as I like to call it. Brought up calling it soccer, but
we'll call it football, Matty. And as we mentioned just before the song, that there's big things happening in football, both nationally and more likely for the Moreton Bay region, with the introduction of the Australian Premier League, and in that will be the Queensland division. and part of the Queensland division will be the Moreton Bay United Football Club. It's a new football club looking to be a representative of our region, and new head coach is Terry Kirkham, who we know, of course, is a successful Brisbane Premier League coach. And Terry joins us on the air now. Good morning, Terry.
Gents, good morning.
Give us some background, Terry, if you could, on the APL, the Australian Premier League, what it's set up to do and what it hopes to achieve.
Yeah, look, it's an initiative by Football Federation Australia to, start looking at the second tier level of football in the country. So not just looking at having each state just looking after its own sort of areas. It's now an initiative to start looking at the second tier under the A-League. So, look, it's something that they've been talking about for a long time, and it is needed in the country where it's under under basically a governing rule of FFA and the technical director, Mr. Harmberger.
It has taken. We're now into are we into the 8th season now of the A-League? Sorry, the number escapes me, but
yeah.
It's taken a while for that to bed down, as we expected it would. A lot of people in the football community had probably hoped it would be bed down sooner, but I guess the second tier comp is a natural progression on from that. And tell us about Moreton Bay United and how that fits in, Terry.
Moreton Bay United came about through the development of what Albany Creek has created. Claude Sabello and a board of Albany Creek walked in there and looked at things 6 or 7 years ago and really concentrated on building that club around youth and youth development and then the kids and the growth of that club now and what they've built down there has really seen it strive to over 3,000 members. So what they've created there now, they then have seen the opportunity that the kids, once they get to the top level at 12s, 13s, 14s, 15s, 16s, there needed to be another level then to move on to. And, so what they did, they then went and did all their research over the last 6 to 12 months with this APL system and decided that for the region, it needed a presence in this new APL format. So some other people got together, some business people, and a separate board's been created and a separate club was formed, and Albany Creek now is a financial contributor to Moreton Bay United, and they've really pushed forward with a plan, and look, it's a plan for the region. It's not just Albany Creek, but it's a plan for the region, and looking at moving forward, they've got long-term visions, and it's a very good vision as well.
And part of the structure too of the APL is to by 2018 to start identifying some of the most successful clubs. Obviously they'd have to be successful on and off the field, but to look at then a promotion and relegation structure with the A-League and the second tier APL, which I think is a terrific thing. We see that in the biggest and the best leagues around the world as well, and I think we'd all agree that competition in that way is a healthy thing. But from a personal point of view, Terry, being named as coach of Moreton Bay United, we know you from your success at Peninsula Power, and of course you spent the last season as an assistant with Wolves FC, which of course won the BPL Grand Final. Your thoughts, and I guess on being coach of Moreton Bay United in its first season?
Look, I'm ecstatic. It's a move forward for me. I've got to sit back and watch things develop over the past 12 months. At the end of the season in 2011, I met with the Technical Director of Football Queensland, Peter McLennan, who's the ex-CEO at the Raw, Ange Postecoglou. Spoke to some people in the FFA knowing that an A licence scheduling was happening for this year, 2012, and I made it quite clear that that I wanted to get onto that course. Now, in those discussions, of course, moving forward as a coach, it was trying to get to the next level. And the APL system was discussed then, and since then, I've looked at various things, and I've been to meetings, and I attended a meeting not too long ago where Harmberger, who's the head of the FFA in Australia, put forward the platform for the APL in what he would like and what he wants to see, and what Football Federation Australia wants to see. Now, when I've sat down and spoken to all these people, and I've listened to Hamburg, and I saw the proposal on what they want to do, for me to move forward in the game and to try and get to the next level, I just knew that I had to be a part of this program, and to get the opportunity to do that and stay in Brisbane and not have to move somewhere else to try and get a gig, and then never alone to do that in Moreton Bays, where my kids are growing up. We're well set now, family wise. It's really, I suppose, a challenge, but it's something that's very, very exciting as well.
And interesting too, Terry, that for some of our listeners it will be the first they've heard of the APL and indeed Moreton Bay United. But overnight there was a function at the South Pine Sports Complex at Brendale, where the first of what will be a number of key signings for Moreton Bay United was announced.
Look, that's right. I haven't sort of, I'm not waiting for for the world to come to us. We've got a lot of things happening. We've made some key signings last night. Royce Brownlee, to a lot of people that don't know Royce Brownlee's a Queensland boy, he's a Brisbane boy. Royce has had a distinguished career from a young player, starting with the Brisbane Strikers to Marconi in the NSL, in the National Soccer League, and then off to England. Great career in England, then back to Australia, where he spent time at Wellington Phoenix in the A-League, and in the past sort of 3-4 years he's now been back in the Brisbane League and winning golden boots and still producing. So it's a fantastic signing for us. Royce also too will be the club captain. I've signed Marko Ranovic, goalkeeper, young goalkeeper who was a Caboolture boy. Originally came from Mackay, moved to Caboolture. I think I came across Marko when he was 17. He's now 23 and done very, very well. And we've signed a young boy as well, 16-year-old, a boy that I saw playing when he was about 12, and I've watched him since he was 12, and he's now 16. And Mitch Schumack is a young boy that's from Redcliffe. They're the three sort of key signings to start with. We've got a number of boys on the go, but one thing I do want to say, the Moreton Bay United website started only a week ago, and we've already had 140 registered players to turn up to trials in under a week. So the APL system is getting out there, and that's between juniors from under 12s to the seniors. But to have 140 players register already in a week for trials through those age groups from all different clubs, really says that this thing is going one way.
Yeah, it is a great outcome, and that website is www.moretonbayunited.com. Terry, it's all going to happen pretty quickly. The season's set to start in March. We wish you all the well in building that squad and preparing for the new Australian Premier League. We'll certainly stay in touch with you as well, and thanks for joining us on SportsFeva.
No problems. Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Thanks, Terry. Terry Kirkham there. Andre, very exciting. We've always spoke about pathways on this show, and that's just another great stepping stone for local sport, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is, and I think across our region, aside from some of those marquee clubs like the Redcliffe Dolphins, we're really lacking in really state-based or teams playing in state competitions. We obviously had the Caboolture Suns playing at a basketball level in both men's and women's competition, but I really feel that this region, and we've seen the Caboolture Sports Cricket Club have ambitions to play at a state level as well, and as you said, any of that pathway that we can develop locally, where players can develop and play in this region, right from junior level up to state level, I think would be a terrific thing. And I really hope that the Australian Premier League is a success, and that Moreton Bay United's a big part of that success.
What's the format, Andre? Can you fill us in a bit more on the amount of teams?
Yeah, 12-team competition. The majority of those are based in southeast Queensland. Some of your traditional clubs like Brisbane Strikers and Olympic are obviously a part of that. I'm not exactly sure on how many weeks the season is, but I guess the benefit, we've seen the Queensland State League in operation for a number of years now, but there's a lot of large amount of travel involved in that, whereas this, my understanding is that Brisbane or southeast Queensland based teams will only have to travel that distance 3 times a year, which from a cost point of view is far more achievable. And
that's often been the downfall of these second tier competitions, is the cost prohibitive nature of the travel. There's just not the money for that, so that is a big thing.
You're exactly right, and when Moreton Bay United at the level that it's going to be is still challenging for the same commercial dollar that the Brisbane Roar and Brisbane Broncos and everyone else is. We're very much a small city in terms of the commercial dollar, so that's advantageous that the travel is kept to a minimum. But look, I think it's going to be a fantastic thing. Football in Brisbane has always been strong. There was obviously a bit of a lull there, but on the back of the success of the Brisbane Roar in the past couple of years, I think there's a real rejuvenation process taking place, and the APL Queensland division being part of the national second tier competition to the A-League can only make it a good thing for football if it's done right. Yeah, no,
that's very exciting times for local football, and I'm really looking forward to that, and to get behind another local team, like you said.
Absolutely.
Very good.
SportsFeva bump will be in action come March next year.
It's already in action. We'll start nice and early. We've got to hear a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back to talk more football. It's 26 minutes past 8 here on SportsFeva with Matthew and Andre. We talk football at a local level now to turn our attention to a national scale, Andre.
Certainly have, and we've got Mark Van Aken, our Melbourne-based football correspondent, obviously a big part of the Green and Gold Army too. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Not a problem, boys.
Now, all good news so far on the A-League front, except for one major thing, I guess, in my life and probably yours as well, Mark, more importantly, that Melbourne Victory are struggling.
Yeah, they sure are. It's been a really disappointing start to the season for them, and I guess a sore topic up in Brisbane is obviously Ange Postecoglou flying the coop, but he's certainly got a magic wand, but he hasn't waved it too much in Melbourne so far this season.
Now, I don't know if it was too much of a sore point last weekend. The Raw obviously routed the Victory, and
That's right.
We've seen a real rejuvenation of football here in Brisbane. But also the feeling is that now on a national level, the crowd figures for the first two rounds of the A-League have been terrific. What have you made of it all?
Yeah, look, it's been all positive, and I think that shows just what a positive force Western Sydney have been. I mean, they've only had the one home game so far. They got 10,000, which I think was good without being great, but the fact they've sold out the game this week. In fact, the good news for the A-League is the debate this week is whether Western Sydney should have moved their first home game or their first derby game against Sydney FC away to a bigger stadium like ANZ Stadium with 80,000 seats. So I think they've made the right decision for starters to stay at Parramatta Stadium and sell the place out and get it absolutely jumping and rocking. But on top of that, what a great problem to have. Football, Aussie Rules has this problem, and rugby league from time to time has this problem, but we don't typically have a problem in football where we're wanting to move to a bigger stadium. So that's been great news, and I guess it shows that they've finally, after, I guess, in your neck of the woods with the Gold Coast expansion and I guess North Queensland as well, pretty disastrous, they may well have finally got one of their expansion teams right.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way, and you talk at 22,000 at Parramatta Stadium this weekend for the derby. I don't think even the Parramatta Eels, Matthew Duncan is our rugby league expert here, Mark. I don't think the Eels have sold out Parramatta Stadium for some time.
Not for a long while. It's Nathan Hindmarsh's retirement, I think they moved the game away, but yeah, it'd been a long time before then.
So it looks like things are budding well, but tell us, just I guess expand on that a bit, Mark, about the impact that obviously Alessandro Del Piero has had moving to Sydney, but also Emile Heskey as well. Many football purists probably don't rate him too highly, but he does carry that big name tag, and he's done good things already for Newcastle.
No, look, he has, and he is a big name, and at least he's coming in with some sort of form. We've had some of the bigger names come in the past, probably more have failed than succeeded, but with Del Piero, the big question, and I was asking it too, massive name in football, no doubt, but what impact would he have at age 37? Just observing the first couple of weeks, he certainly isn't exactly twinkle-toed anymore. He's moving a bit like me on the field, but the reality is he's got a lot more skill, and just that free kick last week, couldn't have asked for much more in Sydney. 35,000 at the SFS, a bit of a derby, I guess, against Newcastle. Heskey obviously popping up as well, and as long as Heskey just bangs home a few goals, I think that's a pretty decent return on investment for Newcastle United. And then going back to Western Sydney with Ono coming in as well, a really big name, I guess, in Asian football circles. So it's pretty funny because it was only 18 months ago we were talking all doom and gloom in football, but it's amazing what one very long off-season can do for the game, and it's all positive news stories so far. And we even had Socceroos win during the week to get our World Cup campaign back in order. So, no, it's a happy time in football.
Yeah, I'll ask you about the Socceroos in just a moment, Mark, but I guess a critical question for the FFA at the moment, and we know that David Gallup's going to be coming into the chief role. How do they capitalise at this point on the excitement and the peak interest that's now in football?
Well, the funny thing too is Ben Buckley's obviously sticking around, the existing CEO, to complete the TV deal before Gallup sort of takes over. You wonder, you would have thought Fox Sports were in a pretty strong position given the woes of the game, but in a very short period of time, there's some good news stories. The ratings are up, the crowds are up. I know it's only 2 weeks into the season, so we shouldn't get too carried away, I guess, but you wonder if that's having an impact, an 11th hour impact at the deal table as well. But look, I think some of the things coming up with the anti-siphoning now, that the Socceroos have been forced, I guess, onto free-to-air TV, which is for the purists that don't want to pay for their Foxtel, that's a half win. And the fact that it sounds like we're almost certainly going to get an A-League game every week on SBS as well. So look, that's how they do it. But otherwise, just capitalising. I guess that's where all sports federations need to have that real decent connection between the local clubs, so the Brisbane Roar and then Football Queensland, and connecting it to the grassroots. And I know there's obviously big things afoot, which you might have already just talked about with the Australian Premier League up in Queensland. So it's all those little steps that they, pardon me, you need to make sure there's a link between the elite and the grassroots level.
Yeah, it's still fundamental to what we do now. You mentioned the Socceroos, and just quickly, Vince Grella, we see, who's been a stalwart in that Australian national team, has signed for Melbourne Heart this weekend. Wouldn't mind, I guess, seeing him at the Melbourne victory mark, but the Socceroos' performance on Wednesday night, they got the 3 points in a 2-0 win. I guess it was it came late, but better late than never. How do you assess their performances in this qualifying period? Because I guess the general consensus is that it hasn't been top shelf, and there's still a bit of a way to go.
Oh, there certainly is. And look, my only concern at the moment is after getting out of jail the other night, which is the only way I can describe it. It's funny how a couple of late goals can smooth over the cracks, even just up at 3 in the morning. In the Twitter sphere, watching all the people, and I was probably one of them, complaining about the way we were playing and how the program's gone so far. All of a sudden you score 2 goals and life's good again, but that's probably covering over the massive holes we've got in this team. There's been no generational change, I guess, between the so-called golden generation. It seems we've got 32, 33, 34-year-olds, and the next generation of 20, probably blokes in their late 20s, don't seem to be quite up to it. So then we're looking to the next generation of 20, 21, 22-year-olds, and they're probably not quite ready. So, yeah, look, the program is not in a great space. And the other thing we can't take for granted, we've got 3 home games out of the 4 remaining. It was, we're just going to win those and we make the World Cup. Well, it's easier said than done. Yeah, we should win a couple of them, but all you need to do is draw or lose one of those home games, and all of a sudden you're well and truly on the back foot.
And you're going back to Montevideo to try and challenge through South America. So not fun at all. But Mark, we appreciate your insight as always into the state of the game nationally from a football point of view, and great to see the A-League doing well. And thanks for joining us on SportsFeva. We might have lost him on that last connection there.
Might have lost him, but a good time to lose him at the end anyway.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, but no, he's spot on. I guess the smoothing over the cracks, as he put it, with the Socceroos result on Wednesday night. We dominated for much of the game, conceded a goal against the run of play, and it required two late goals to clinch 3 very valuable points. But there's still a lot of work to do for a whole Gossick side.
And what have you got any insight there? I know, like I said, I woke up to the Twitterverse on the other morning, and there was a lot of complaints about, like, what for, I guess, the non-football lovers, what are some of the things that need to be worked on?
Oh, look, I think, and again, as Mark pointed out, there's a generational gap here that we're trying to make as least damaging as we can, but we can't dismiss the fact that we had a very good crop of players come through in 06 and even in 2010. That were at the top of their game, playing in some of the biggest clubs in world football, and they're coming to the end of their careers, and we just don't have that next level stepping up. So, in many ways, it's simply a class factor that's just not there at the moment. There's some good young talent in the A-League, but whether or not they're ready to make the step up, it doesn't appear they are, when we're still relying on Archie Thompson, who's done very well in the A-League, but he's never really excelled on the world stage, to score a winner against Iraq. So, look, it's natural that we went so long without having a top-class national team that couldn't make the World Cup. We did have that golden generation and made the last 2 World Cups. That's starting to decline a bit, and we're now looking for answers as to how we make sure we qualify for the next World Cup.
Interesting time ahead. No doubt. It's 25-9 here on SportsFeva. Time for some Mumford & Sons. 21 minutes to 9 here on 101.5. You listen to SportsFeva with Matthew and Andre. Time now to talk some Little Athletics, and joining us on the line is Karen Bolam from Caboolture Little Athletics, and good morning to you.
Hi guys.
How are you, Karen? Andre Grimo here as well. Very keen to find out how Little Athletics is faring, and in particular after the Olympics, which obviously we generally see a bit of a rise in participation numbers after any Olympics. Has the Caboolture Centre felt that this year?
We certainly have. We were in shock after our first sign-on day. We were prepared to have more athletes, but we didn't expect as many more as what we had. But now the numbers have settled down a bit now. We're up to 330 athletes so far, which is 115 more than what we had sign-on this time last year. Usually our sign-ons are completed by the end of October, so we probably would expect that we won't get many more registrations after the end of this month. But certainly the Olympics has definitely affected it. We've got lots of keen people trying for the first time, and we've actually had quite a few athletes who may have taken a year off or 2 years off and have come back.
No, that's great news that the Olympics has really spurred on the sign-on numbers. For those people that are listening out there and would have heard of Little Athletics but mightn't be quite sure what it involves, can you just take the listeners through the Little Athletics program?
Yeah, sure. Basically, with Little Athletics, all of our children participate in all of the events. So we do all of our running, our 70, 100, 200, 400, 800, 1500 metre races. We do long jump, triple jump, high jump, shot put, discus, javelin. We also do hurdles. We have race walking. We also offer coaching 3 afternoons a week at our centre, and that's included within the fee. So our Friday nights are what we call our competition nights, so that the children receive a point for participating in each event, and then they get extra points if they achieve a personal best or a PB, and another point if they equal a personal best. So it's all about themselves getting better. So it's not so much, even though we do focus on some of our star athletes, because we do have some kids that are very talented, we try to encourage all of our children to actually just do better than what they've previously done.
And can I just say, Karen, as in a former life as a sports journalist for the Caboolture Herald, I challenged a few of your young athletes there to a 100-metre sprint, and I think there was some discus thrown in, and even the long jump. And I take my hat off to them because they are all-round talented, and it's clear that the program's working. Yeah,
and that's one thing that we do encourage the children. Like, everyone has their pet event, but we say it's all about trying. So even if, you're really good at throwing or you're really good at jumping, the running helps you with the fitness that you need to jump, but you need the fitness to throw as well. So it's all about being a complete package. We get lots of footballers who sign on because it keeps them fit in the off season. So it's a great way for fitness, and it helps the kids with coordination too, like, the whole running, jumping, throwing. It is a really great way for the whole family to get involved. We get parents out there. We need up to 50 parents to help us every Friday night to make our program run. So the kids can see their parents out there helping, and in turn it makes the kids, their parents are enjoying it, so the kids think, well, it's enjoyable to help. So.
And that makes it a terrific community environment too, I'm sure. Karen, now tell us about some of those young talents that are emerging out of the Centenary Lakes track.
Well, it's early in the season, but we have had some of our athletes, both junior and senior, already break some centre records. Which is great, great for the kids. This early in the season, it means that probably records are going to fall frequently if they've broken this early, and they're not. Some of them have been records that have been standing for 15, 20 years, so they're not records that have only just been set in the past few years. They're quite well-established records.
Let's make them famous. Who's broken a record in the early part of this summer season?
We've had one of our athletes, Jack, who is very good at throws. He's broken the discus and the shot put. We've got another young girl, her name's Brianna, and she's broken the triple jump. We've got another athlete, Mitchell, who's also broken a long jump record. And we've got some of our younger athletes, our under 11s and under 12s, that are so close to breaking our some of our sprinting records. Like every week they've got their eye on it. They're only like point something of a second away. So it's very exciting in the lead up to our regional relays that are coming up in November.
That's fantastic. Now, the regional relays, I was going to ask you just about some of those key dates over the summer. The regional relays are at Gympie, I believe, for the Sun Coast District. Right. And what are some of the other big events over the summer for our local little athletics?
Well, after the regional relays, anyone who qualifies for regional relays gets to compete at the state relays, which are held at the state athletics at Nathan, and that's in December. And then in February we have our individual regional track and field relays, championships, which are held up at Sippy Downs. And then if you qualify for states, you then go again back to Nathan, which is at the end of our season in March. But throughout the season, lots of different little athletics centres have invitational events that some of our athletes and their families go to. That's completely optional, but some of the kids do that to get the extra competition and the socialising. I know my girls have got friends from different centres that they've met over the years, and it's nice to catch up with them.
Absolutely. It's exciting times in little athletics and plenty on, and no doubt we'll probably touch base throughout the year, Karen, to see what else is happening in little athletics and see who else has broken those records as the season goes on. We really appreciate your time and the update this morning. We'll talk to you throughout the year.
Great. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, Karen. Karen from Caboolture Little Athletics. I remember that time you took on all those little A-stars.
Career high point, I would have thought.
Yep. You got towel in every event, didn't you? I think?
Dusted in everything.
That's
100 metre sprint. I was a no-show.
But with little athletics, it's just amazing what I remember at school myself. You could always tell the kids that did little athletics. They just always had, I guess, an advantage on everyone else, just technique-wise and everything else. Like with your long jumps and high jumps, you could always tell. And they were not necessarily the most talented sports stars at our school, but they just had the techniques down pat, and that took them a long way.
Yeah, and look, you drive past Centenary Lakes now on a Friday night, and the place is absolutely packed. You have tennis fixtures, and there's a lot of touch footy happening down there as well over the summer. And little athletics, as Karen said, to go from to now have 330 registered participants, if you like, 115 up from last year is a terrific outcome. I'm sure a lot of that is on the back of the Olympics, but a lot of that is on the hard work of the little athletics committees as well. So well done to all involved. Just quickly, Matty, some things to look forward to this weekend, local sporting front. Cricket-wise, the Caboolture Division 1 or first grade side heads up to Gympie for the second round of two-day games, and a big local derby will be held at Grant Road Fields at Moray Field in Division 2, Caboolture versus Burpengary. Always a good fixture there too. So plenty happening in local cricket. In baseball, the Narangba Demons, having taken the double victory last weekend against Indians, they head away to play Musketeers Friday night and Sunday afternoon. So good luck to all our local sporting teams this weekend.
Absolutely, we'll be cheering them on and give them a big SportsFeva bump. Time now for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back to talk spring racing. It's 11 minutes to 9 here on SportsFeva on Moreton Bay's own radio station, 101.5. You listen to Matthew and Andre, who's making his comeback appearance on SportsFeva today. Now, it's my favourite time of the year, and time now to talk some spring racing. And joining us on the line is one of the best in the business. It's Chris Nelson from Best Bets. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Matthew. How are you going?
I'm very well, mate, and very excited. We've got the Caulfield Cup coming up this Saturday, and it's really kicks off the spring carnival proper. We've got the Caulfield Cup this Saturday, then the Cox Plate, then we're into Derby Day the following Saturday, and then it's Melbourne Cup Day. So it's action-packed for all us racing lovers.
Yeah, it sure is. We've got as you said, we've got the big three over the next few weeks. As you said, kicking off with the Caulfield Cup tomorrow and the Cox Plate, and then the Melbourne Cup. It's a great time for racing, and it's the time when everyone gets out and has a few drinks and a good time.
Yes, it's a very enjoyable time of the year, and we got the Caulfield Cup on Saturday. Now, a couple of the real main chances in the betting of the barrier draw come out yesterday, and they've all drawn the car park, so to speak.
Yeah, the two at the top, Americane and Dunedin, the last two winners of the Melbourne Cup, have have drawn 19 and 22 before the scratching, so their work's going to be cut out. And of course we've got the favourite, Glencadam Gold, who was so impressive winning the recent Metropolitan in Sydney, drawn gate 21 before scratching. So Jim Cassidy's going to have his work cut out getting across from that wide gate, because with the Waterhouse runners they all go forward, and this horse's pattern is to roll forward in its races.
Chris, Andre Grimo, for the mug punter, where do we put our money? And for the Caboolture punters that like to get on local boy Glenn Boss, who's of course on Sneaker Peak, what are the chances?
Look, Andre, I think it's a tough race. I mean, just looking at it, I had a good look at this morning just to see how much the locals have got in, or the imports have got involved as against the locals. In recent years, the Melbourne Cup's been the one that the imports have come out for, but looking at the field, we've got 22 runners without scratching, so there won't be a full 22 go round, there'll be 18. Now, 6 of those are currently trained overseas, and another 6 are now with Australian trainers that were trained overseas. So we've got over 50% of horses that have come from overseas, and that just shows the outstayers aren't as strong as they should be. So the winner's likely to come from something that comes from overseas. Now, I thought number 10, My Quest for Peace, trained by Luca Kamani in England, and to be ridden by Corey Brown, might be the way to go. Hasn't had a run for a few months, but look, a lot of these horses have been in quarantine, so they've been doing plenty of track work and plenty of training, and they are trained differently to our horses. They can perform first up. They don't need 4 or 5 runs to bring them to their peak. I just thought nicely placed. Corey Brown's a good jockey in Group 1 races. It might run a race on Saturday.
And the forecast for Saturday in Melbourne's fairly favourable. I think 23 degrees and a fairly fine day, so that's obviously got to weigh into the thinking as well.
Oh, definitely the case. I mean, and look, some of those imports might find the track a little bit too hard. They are used to racing on softer ground, but look, I think it should be perfect for everybody. There's maybe a little bit of dew forecast, but look, it shouldn't be hot by any means.
For what it's worth, I'm going against the imports. I think locally trained Secret Amora can run a bit of a race at each way odds.
Think it can run the distance, Matthew?
I think it can, and I think it's racing more like a star this campaign, and it might be a hold your breath case in the last 100 metres or so, but I think it can run a sneaky race at around $20.
Well, I wouldn't take you on, mate. You're a good judge.
Fair enough, mate. Now we'll turn our attention to the next Saturday, which is Cox Plate Day, and coming up to the Saturday just gone, it probably looked like a foregone conclusion. It looked like Gay Waterhouse had the top 2 that would fight out the Cox Plate, and Pereiro and More Joyous, but things have changed since last weekend. Of course, they both were defeated, and it's kind of a real open Cox Plate now.
It is. It's usually the Cox Plate's different to the Melbourne Cup and the Caulfield Cup. It's a weight for age race, as we know. It's not a handicap. It's usually won by the best horse basically in the country. Look, there's a few recent races or a few editions that haven't been that way, but in general that's the case. Now, you mentioned Piero. Piero was basically, over the line, everybody thought, up until the Guineas last week at Caulfield. Was asked to do a lot of work, and there was a lot of talk about Nashua Willer's ride. Well, whatever the case, I mean, he had to do the work 4 wide up the hill at Caulfield, which is just an impossible task to win. So I thought the effort from Piero was outstanding, actually, and I certainly wouldn't sack the horse. It's got to run 2,000 though. I suppose that is a query. It's only been as far as the 1,600 of last week. More Joyous, as you mentioned, was a little bit disappointing. Did have to carry a lot of weight and give a lot of weight to a lot of opponents, but I think she's probably a little bit of a query at a strong 2,000 as well. Look, the horses such as Ocean Park, who's winning the right lead-up races, Green Moon's racing well, and the horse that beat Piero last week, All Too Hard, I think looks nicely placed. It'll definitely run the 2,000 metres, and it'll get in with a very, very light weight. And
the thing about All Too Hard, which for the people that aren't racing lovers, I guess, is he's got a fairly handy relation. Yeah,
one called Black Caviar. It's not a bad relation to have.
Yeah, as far as relations go, that's a fairly handy one. Now, after we finish with the Cox Plate, about 10 days later, we've got the Melbourne Cup. Now, it's probably a bit rough on you to throw out a tip early. We've got some big lead-up races. Of course, the Caulfield Cup is a fantastic lead-up race for the Melbourne Cup. And in recent times, the Geelong Cup has become one of the best lead-up races. Any early thoughts on the Cup, though, Chris?
Look, I think, once again, you've got to look to the internationals. The first 8 in the betting at the moment are either trained overseas, or they're expats trained here now that were Europeans or Americans. Look, I think you've got to stick with those horses. Look, I think Junior Dan and Americane, I mentioned those at the top of the segment. They're the two horses that have won the last two Melbourne Cups. I'd be keeping those right up in your thoughts. And just keep an eye on some of these other ones, Mount Athos, etc., we haven't seen. They've been at quarantine, they've done plenty of work. And as you said, the Geelong Cup's been a really good lead-up over the last few years. That's run the week after next, I think it is. And, of course, the Caulfield Cup's also been a good lead-up. But, look, the races, these big races are changing complexion with all these imported gallopers on the scene. So just keep an eye on the lead-up races, read the papers, see which ones are working well, and then keep your eye on the betting moves as well.
One of those internationals in particular, and we've seen his work before, the Irish wizard, as he's known, Dermot Weld, as Galileo's choice in the mug. And I don't believe it travelled particularly well over from Ireland, but he's similar to Bart Cummings, isn't he? You've always got to watch out for his horses.
Oh, definitely the case. And he's trained two Melbourne Cup winners as it is. He's trained Vintage Crop, who was the first international to win a Melbourne Cup, and then Media Puzzle some years back for Damien Oliver. Now, he took Media Puzzle through the Geelong Cup. I don't know if he's going that way with this horse. I haven't read anything about that, but yeah, he's a very shrewd trainer. As you said, he's the Bart Cummings of Irish racing. He can get them going on the right day, especially stayers.
And one of the other ones to look out for, who's particularly well in at the weights, is last year's runner-up by the barest possible margin, Red Cadeau. I think will be one to watch out for as well. Yeah,
I definitely think you're right there. As you said, it could easily turn the tables on Junior Den. There was only an eyelash between the two of them last year.
Yes, exciting times for all racing lovers coming up over the next couple of weeks. We really appreciate your thoughts, Chris. Now, we know you're a bit of an expert on Brisbane racing, and for people that like to follow Chris's tips, you can find them on in Best Bets, and you also run a trial service, Chris.
Yeah, I've got a trial service that covers all the southeast Queensland barrier trials. It's very comprehensive. It's on the internet, www.queenslandtrials.com.au. Gives you all the information there, and if you'd like to drop me a line and let me know that you listened in today on the radio, through that contact us section, I'll do your deal for the next...
Beautiful.
Written deal, how's that sound?
Sounds good, and you threw out an $18 winner yesterday too for all the followers.
Which one? Oh yeah, that one, Masterful Play at Eagle Farm. Yes, that was a nice result, wasn't it?
It was good for all the loyal followers out there, Chris, so good luck, and it's always worth following your trial service.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that, Matthew.
No worries, Chris, we'll talk to you again soon.
Terrific, thanks very much, guys.
Thanks. Chris Nelson from Best Bets giving us a spring carnival rundown. Andre, have you marked all them down in your little black book?
Got them marked down, and as we must say, please bet responsibly if you are having a punt during the spring racing carnival. Matty, a question without notice, and I know we don't have a lot of time, but country racing in Queensland, are we seeing a revival? Under the new state government, we see Kilcoy having some life, breathes back into it. Are things going the right way?
It's going the right way. Prize money's back, meetings are back. We spoke to Con Searle on the show prior to the Kilcoy meeting. It was a huge success for the club. I've spoke to Con since the meeting. They've been promised more dates. That's going to be a fixture on Sky Channel for the next couple of years at least. Yeah, country racing, particularly in southeast Queensland, around your Kilcoys and Esks, Bow Deserts, it's back under this new government. So that is good news and exciting news for a lot of locals in the region. So very exciting times.
No, I'm glad I got that out of you, and a good one to follow too, because it's a lifeblood of a lot of our small country towns and communities. So good news.
Yeah, it is very exciting news, and the full-time sign's about to go though. Andre, you've been back, and it's been a good comeback from you.
Thanks for having me, and yeah, make sure Swampy Marsh keeps on kicking goals in the chair.
Well, we've got to keep him on the mark sometimes, Swampy, and we've got to talk more soccer. We haven't spoke soccer till we got you back, so we'll endeavour to talk more soccer. We thank all our guests this morning, and please stand by for the national news, the morning magazine, for all your news, views and interviews.